And
We
time
arrive
for the
to
final one.
the final guest, UK strategic leader and investor Alex INGLOT. I'd like to ask you, what do you see as the biggest opportunity or challenge currently facing racquet sports?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me at the moment is the youth, right? Especially when you look at the reputation that some of racket sports already have. You have, the country club model of tennis clubs in places like Great Britain or America. You have Padel, where the private investors have moved so quickly in a lot of the new countries, and obviously they are focused on building viable businesses, securing margins, and so they're not fully incentivized to try and create accessibility opportunities which might come at a lower cost and which might be more accessible for youngsters. So I think really the challenge is now that some of these sports are finding their feet and finding their comfort zone, in pickleball as well, which has its sweet spot in the older generation of players, how do we now convert that into youth enthusiasm? And how do we make that, first of all, accessible in terms of cost? How do we make sure paddle clubs are cheap enough so that kids can go there? How do we forge the relationships with schools, community programs, even universities to really get that pipeline going? I've had numerous conversations on my podcast, All the Angles, about the power of US student athlete scholarships in America to be an absolute game changer. And a lot of people I speak to about it, they think, yeah, no, in America that will make a difference. And I said, no. Globally, it will make a difference, because not only do American parents think very seriously about which sport they push their children into based on where they might end up on a scholarship in America, global parents do the same thing. You look at tennis players like Somdev Devarman, who played tennis at University of Virginia. My brother, who was a British scholar who played at University of Virginia. If universities in America embrace paddle scholarships, it will be seismic for the pickup of the sport globally. So I think, but also not just a case about accessibility, there's also the case of relevance, the reputation of the sport. Is this, I hate to sound like the old boomer, but is the sport cool? Does it tap into the various incentives, initiatives, profiles, social media channels, influencers that young people care about? Recently in the UK, we saw Stormzy, who is one of the most influential grime artists, very well loved and respected by the young kids in the UK. He became a investor in Padel Social Club. Things like that make a serious difference for people who are 25 and under. So I think really for me, it's about exploring and really taking advantage of the pipelines that enable children and youth to not just come into the sport, but stay into the sport. That for me is one of the biggest challenges.
Another one, in your view,